Hey friends, Dr. Frank here, and I promised all of you a little talk about hair loss in COVID times. Now, hair loss is a common complaint for men and women all the time, but particularly now in COVID era, there are some very good reasons why people may be having hair loss problems even more than ever. Now, certainly people who had COVID, myself included, are seeing a dramatic increase in hair loss. And it's not COVID per se, but it's a very common condition that a lot of people get called telogen effluvium. Don't make me spell it. I can, but I'm not going to spell it for you. And telogen effluvium is a condition. It's very, very stressful when it happens because hair comes out in like clumps, and it's associated with severe physical or emotional stress. Physical stress like hospitalization, trauma, illness, pregnancy, very common cause, pregnancy, severe amounts of weight loss, dietary changes, emotional stress, divorce, loss of a family member. Not like your common daily stress, but severe stress can cause this. And what this is about 3 or 4 months after the inciting event, the illness or the emotional stress, all of a sudden hair just starts coming out in clumps. It's really quite scary. Now, what people don't realize is that hair falling out is actually the beginning of new hair growing out. So what happens is during the initial stress point, your body's like, hey, I gotta prioritize. There's something going on emotionally, physically, and we have to shut off the hair. You also notice the nails. The nails also have a problem too. So the body knows how to prioritize what's important. So it kind of shuts off hair production. 3 or 4 months later, when the body starts to recover, and it starts growing in again, like all the stuff starts coming out, and people will describe it as clumps. It's very disconcerting. I myself, now about, 4 or 5 months after COVID, noticed some mild thinning of the crown. Not happy with that, given all the work I put on to keep it on there. So a lot of people are going through this now, many with COVID, many just from the intense stress of what's going on. The real question is, what can you do? Well, the good news is for most people, it will just go through its cycle. It could take 6 months before it all comes back, and it usually does all come back on its own. But people want to know, what could they do to speed it up? Well, you can use over-the-counter agents like minoxidil, which are follicular stimulants. That does help. In men, we mix it with topical finasteride. In women, I mix it with topical progesterone. We compound it in the office at 7%, a little bit more than over the counter, and that seems to work. Vitamins, supplements, there are ones out there. I'm not going to go into them. They're like chicken soup. They can't really hurt. Some say they help, but again, supplements are really not going to do that much as long as you're having a healthy diet. Being healthy, reducing your stress, eating right, these are very, very important in telogen effluvium, because obviously the more you allow your body to heal and regain its strength, it can start reprioritizing the things that sometimes it doesn't think it's so important. Finally, the last thing that we do in office, which I have found to be very helpful in telogen effluvium, is PRP therapy. Now, many of you have heard about this. It's used cosmetically, it's used with microneedling or injection into the skin, but it is known, and there's a lot of great studies to support this, that it helps when you inject it into the scalp for hair loss. Now, it's not gonna work for hair loss like men who have big bald spots, but it does work great in like perimenopausal hair loss, and it does work great in this telogen effluvium to stimulate faster growth. We draw your blood, we put it through a process where we spin it down, isolate the growth factors. It's platelet-derived growth factor, and we inject it. My nurses inject it into the scalp. We have some ways to minimize pain and discomfort during the injection. We usually do that once a month for about 3 months. But there is science behind it. People ask me about PRP in the skin for wrinkles and rejuvenation all the time. I am not as big of a fan. I find it very traumatic. It's expensive, and there's so many other options with lasers and injectables that I think do so much more for rejuvenation in the skin. So I'm not a big fan of PRP for skin rejuvenation. But for hair loss, the science is there. Anecdotally, it works. We do it all the time in the office. And for telogen effluvium, COVID or non-COVID related, I think it's beneficial. So that's my thing on COVID hair loss. Again, telogen effluvium, stress related, not specific to COVID. And that is all, folks. See you later.